My freedom is being lost because this goddamn disease won't go away. Everyone has a birthright to live on a planet that is free of contagion. So, just about 20 hours ago, the FDA finally approved its first COVID-19 vaccine, a full approval of the Pfizer vaccine, which is, of course, what I got because since I have insiders in with the FDA, I anticipated that would be the one to go through first. There were a lot of things that I want to say about this, but I think I'm actually going to structure my acknowledgement of this in a way that many people have over email asked me to. I'm not going to talk to my audience here. I'm going to talk to the friends and relatives of my audience who haven't taken the vaccine and still do not want to. So that's on you guys. Make it spread. And if you're in that position and you're watching this, first of all, please keep in mind that the only reason you're watching this is probably because somebody, most likely a viewer of mine, cared enough about you to subject themselves to the agony of discussing this incredibly contentious subject with a person who disagrees with them on this, okay? Please listen to me for a second. Full disclosure, I'm sure we disagree on a lot, okay? But I just want to make an impassioned plea to you. And I know you, by the way, okay? A lot of people who said they weren't going to take the vaccine because it hadn't been approved by the FDA yet, you guys weren't actually waiting on FDA approval. Like, I know that. I know that. There's always going to be something, isn't there? Some reason to not want to take it. So I want to address those, okay? And the only thing that I ask of you going into this is that you acknowledge COVID-19 is a thing that exists, okay? There are some people who don't believe that. They still think it's like the cold or something. And a brief look into excess mortality numbers can prove that's not the case. It's a ridiculous position to hold, but as long as you don't hold it, we can talk about this, okay? There are two types of people who don't take the vaccine. There are people who do not think it is necessary, and there are people who oppose it politically. They think that there's an active reason they shouldn't take it. Maybe they fear its potential side effects. Maybe they think it's part of some new world order shift. I don't know. There's always something. But I'd like to address this sort of in a non-order, if I may. Okay, and please follow through with me here. You don't have to agree with everything I say. You only have to agree with my conclusion. So, with regards to the severity of COVID-19, COVID-19 has killed a great many people. It's killed more Americans than every war since World War II up to this point. I'd say that given its death toll, this is definitely something worth taking seriously. There are some people who approach this issue with a collection of weird, like half-hearted dismissals that just boggle my mind. People who were obsessed with 4 deaths in Benghazi, but then downplay this? I mean, we're talking about like hundreds of 9/11s here. It's just very weird to me. I know it's mostly old people, but since when have we decided that deaths are acceptable if they're happening to old people? Like, when did we decide? I never decided that. When did we decide that? I didn't realize that there were a lot of people willing to die on that hill, almost literally. They're like, oh, well, it's only happening to... Okay. It's not just happening to old people, by the way. There are people who die and people who get sick who are not quite old. Admittedly, age is a comorbid factor, but I know people in their 20s and 30s who have gotten COVID. And the thing is, and it's important that you know this, COVID doesn't just kill. There have been well-researched long-term consequences of catching COVID, even if you're young. I mean, even if you're like 20 or 30. My father is still recovering from his spat with COVID-19 back when he got it a while ago, an otherwise healthy man in his 50s who's still dealing with side effects. I know people in their 20s and 30s who are having to contend with this. More difficulty with physical activity, lungs exhaust faster. Hey, erectile dysfunction. That's actually one of the listed problems, okay? You don't want any of that. And for so low a cost, too, to simply get the vaccine. But it's not just the immediate disease that we're worried about here. It's the sort of long-term environmental, economic, and political consequences of COVID-19. There are people right now who are at the same time saying, I don't want to get the vaccine. But then they're bemoaning that this COVID-19 thing will never end. Well, what do you think we got to do to make it end? See, there are billions of people on Earth. The more COVID-19 cycles through the population, the more variants emerge. Those variants are a product of the billions and billions of random DNA permutations caused by cell division. There you go. There, I fit it in, okay, because they're procreating. These billions and billions of random permutations eventually cause a new strain of COVID-19, which is even better at spreading through humans. Of course, we have the Delta strain, but there are more that exist, and there are more, no doubt, on the horizon. And those strains are more and more likely to emerge the more people there are getting sick. So the fewer people there are getting sick, the less likely those possibly vaccine-defying variants there are to emerge. It's kind of a all or one thing here. I mean, we really all need to work in it, you know? It's a really big deal, and it's something we need to work together on globally, not just in this country. To an extent, you can control a country's borders, but we're not going to get around the fact that until this is addressed fully, this is going to cycle around the world over and over and over again, which hurts our economy, which means that jobs are harder to find. It makes everything worse. Even if you're not worried about getting sick, which you should, maybe you should care about the broader consequences of your behavior. Are there people you know and love who you might convey the disease to? Keep in mind that you can transmit the disease without knowing you're, carrying it. You don't have to be symptomatic. You could be completely healthy from day 1 to day 30, and then during that period of time get other people sick. This was the case with the flu. I mean, why wouldn't it be the case with COVID-19? I think there's a 2-week period during which people who will even later develop symptoms as they get sick can still pass it on to other people. You never know. I mean, people say this stuff like, why should I get it? I'm not sick. A non-logic. That's what vaccines are for. Why should I get it when I've already gotten it? Well, people can get COVID more than once. And additionally, people who have already gotten sick of it can still be carriers to lead it to other people. Meaning that, I mean, you should get the vaccine. You've probably seen a lot of stuff on the news about how the vaccine is dangerous and how the vaccine doesn't work and et cetera, et cetera. And a couple of things to this. First of all, the vaccine works. It's been an overwhelmingly successful vaccine. The initial estimations and expectations for it were widely surpassed. I think the initial hope was you could get an 80% vaccine, whereas Pfizer was, what, 95? I mean, that is significantly better, massively better, exponentially in terms of its ability to control the spread of the disease. You've probably seen there are stories on social media of like breakthrough cases where people who have already gotten vaccinated are like getting sick all over the place. The vaccine doesn't work. Couple of points to that. First, and this is really important to keep in mind, people who get sick who have the vaccine aren't as likely to get more sick. As in, they're much less likely to die. They're much less likely to go to the hospital. You understand? Like, it's possible to get sick, but the vaccine massively shields them against the worst consequences of the virus. And that's a pretty good thing. It also means they can cycle through it much faster. Additionally, no. The reason we have a huge uptick right now in COVID cases is not because of breakthrough cases for people who have already been vaccinated. The overwhelming majority of new Delta variant cases are coming from people who are non-vaccinated. There are some very dishonest news sites who are saying stuff like, well, in this town or in this town, the majority of COVID cases are breakthrough cases. There are tens of thousands of towns in America. If you cycle through the data long enough, you will find, if you cycle through the data long enough, I bet you I can find a town where more young people have died of COVID than old people. I mean, if you look through it hard enough. The reason why those stories will always talk about a specific town or a specific district is because they're trying to pull your eyes away from the nationwide statistic, which is that unvaccinated people are overwhelmingly more likely to get COVID. Any news outlet or any YouTuber or anyone else who has ever made this, well, the vaccine must not work because breakthrough cases are going up in this one town argument, you should never listen to them again. They are propagating misinformation with deadly consequences. And if it's not deliberate misinformation, it means they have the statistical analysis abilities of a 4-year-old. Okay? Do not listen to those people. Do not listen to those people. Okay? Oh my God, if you take anything from this, never listen to anyone who would propagate such horrible misinformation to you. Can you imagine if, like, MSNBC tried to sell you on the idea that, like, it's extra deadly to young people because they found, like, one college where more young people got COVID than the old staff on, like, you would look at that and you'd think, "Oh my God, they're clearly trying to sell me a political agenda by lying about the data." Don't fall for it just because you agree with the conclusion that's being arrived at. So, the vaccine works, not perfectly, but well, and it's a good thing to take it. There are people who are worried about the side effects of the vaccine. The side effects of the vaccine are a thing that exist. However, according to all available data, they seem to be incredibly negligible compared to the actual effects of COVID 19. Keep in mind, with COVID 19, we're dealing with global deaths in the millions. And every country on earth is trying to get their hands on the vaccines that we Americans got to pretty much first. I promise you, the vaccines are not more deadly than the actual constantly cycling plague. They don't transmit the effects of the vaccine. It's just something that's internal to you, which means that it can't spread. Everyone else wants it. The available data indicates the vaccines are exponentially less likely to actually make you meaningfully sick than getting COVID 19. And vaccines can't produce variants. Even if getting the vaccine literally gave you full on COVID and everyone in the world had to deal with COVID because they all got the vaccine, that would be the end of it. Because it can no longer spread and no longer produce variants, you would kill the plague at great cost. But thankfully, we don't need to suffer that great cost because the vaccines seem to be pretty safe. If you're concerned about that, talk to your doctor, okay? Just don't go into this thinking that, like, there's some giant conspiracy to hide the hidden side effects of the vaccine, okay? Trump was the one who set in motion the production of these vaccines, and he was pretty proud of it at the time. And what's more, what would the agenda be? Like, say there is a new world order or whatever. What's the agenda behind making the vaccines ineffective? Like, if anything, aren't the most tyrannical things the mask mandates? But that only is the thing because COVID continues to exist, right? Like, if everyone was vaccinated, are you saying, like, vaccines don't prevent the disease at all? Or that the vaccines, they don't have a microchip, by the way. They literally can't. The needles they use to inject the vaccine into you, they cannot, we don't produce microchips that small. They can't go in. You know those microchips you can inject into pets? They require much larger needles than what the vaccine gets shot in your shoulder. Also, why would they do that? Also, why have hundreds of millions of people not found like, you'd think if they were putting vaccines in our blood, they'd be able, like, somebody by now would have, like, cut out the microchip or the microchips, sorry, through the vaccine in our blood. You'd think by now somebody would have cut out the microchip and, like, found it and, like, proved it or something. But instead we get, like, people talking about being magnetized, which isn't how anything anywhere works. I have no idea. I don't know. Look, if you want to talk about a new world order, okay, if you want to talk about a giant conspiracy of government and corporation and Satanists or whatever who are trying to control humanity through vaccines, just doesn't the new world order benefit from people being economically productive? That's the thing, right? Like, all the power structures that exist in our society, like, you'd think what they would want would be for the countries to be able to go back to being economically productive. Why would they not, like, it just seems to me like, what institution doesn't benefit from things going back to normal? Corporations benefit from it because more people will be able to spend more money. The government benefits from it because it means more tax dollars to harvest. I don't know. It seems like when you're approaching things from this perspective, you could give literally any answer. I mean, if you wanted to, you could back it all the way up to, like, they want chaos to be sown, but then they want to fix the chaos so the government will be worshipped, but then the government's unpopular, so they're not good at doing that, even though they control the whole world. And they did this through a real pandemic instead of something manufactured. But like, you can manufacture literally anything. I mean, you realize that, right? It becomes a non-falsifiable belief. Like, how would you even? There are probably a million variants of this conspiracy, more so than there are variants of COVID at the very least. And I can't like disprove them because there's nothing to disprove. It's just a bunch of like really wacky stories. So I hope that's not why you don't want to take the vaccine. Maybe you're just hesitant about the health effects. You probably shouldn't be. You can talk to a doctor if you want to. What you should be worried about is the ongoing crisis of COVID-19. Look, I'm a lefty. I don't want to keep wearing masks, okay? I went grocery shopping today, just today, and I wasn't wearing a mask. And a lady came up to me and said I had to wear a mask. And I realized then that they had gone back to mandating masks in the grocery store. They hadn't for months, and now they've gone back to mandating it. And I hate wearing them because I have a beard, which means that my face doesn't have like a slim contour around which a mask can be worn. It like pushes my beard out like somebody trying to stomp a turd through a shower drain. And it's not, I hate wearing a mask in public. Okay. I hate it. Okay. Also, it makes my face itch. I just, I don't, I don't want it. Okay. I don't want any of this. The best way that we can get through all of this, okay? The only way we can get through all of this is to just get the goddamn vaccine. It's literally free, okay? It's literally free. It's just like a little needle prick, all right? I want to be sympathetic to you, but the fact of the matter is I really can't because like your behavior here has consequences beyond where you are and beyond what you do. Maybe you personally will never get COVID. Maybe you never get vaccinated and you never get COVID. Maybe that's the case with you. But on average, across the whole population, this is something which we should have been able to fix simply by showing people the evidence and getting them to the vaccines themselves. But it's not working because there are too many holdouts. And now we're going to need the vaccine mandates. And now we're going to need to continue the mask mandates. And now we're going to need to keep the borders closed down. And I don't want any of those, but I want those more than I want a forever pandemic. Because we're on Delta right now. You don't know what the next permutation of COVID's going to be. What if it ends up getting so severe? What if it ends up permeating the current vaccines effectively and we have to do this all thing over again? We can't keep doing like we cannot keep doing this. We're talking about like the well-being of the species all around the world, and it's being held up by tin foil hat conspiracy theories and half-baked problems with I mean, what? Like what? Does anyone have any other like how do you even get beyond this? This is the easiest thing in the world to do. We live in a country wealthy enough and politically powerful enough that we were able to get the vaccines before basically anyone else, and we're not even using them. We're running out of like the space to hold the excess vaccines because nobody's showing up to get their injections. Huge gaps in the supposedly or supposed to be vaccinated population, entirely a product of misinformation. We can't, this is completely unsustainable. So maybe address the loss of freedom. My freedom is being lost because this goddamn disease won't go away. Everyone, as far as I'm concerned, has a birthright to live on a planet that is free of contagion. That we pay our tax dollars and we organize into governments in part specifically so that the most dedicated and intelligent doctors on earth can work constantly to produce solutions to what would otherwise be unassailable plague. All right? That's a birthright we all have. I want the freedom to go outside and lick doorknobs, okay? I want the freedom to go to Anime Expo every single year and shake hands with people and then put my entire fist in my mouth, okay? That's a God-given freedom that I am entitled to as an American. And I don't get to have that as long as there are people whose obstinance maintains the presence of this contagion, okay? You complain about your freedom to not get a little needle poke jab twice in your shoulder that'll maybe make your shoulder sore. And meanwhile, your obstinance maintains the unfreedom of billions. It's just not an effective, it's not a good trade, okay? I mean, you like think this is an argument people in prison make? Like, the state has taken away my freedom to murder people. It's true. The state did take murderers' freedom to murder away from them. That is true. We did remove a freedom from them. We did so because it improved the freedom of everyone else, gave everyone else more options. And that's the position we're in right now with vaccines. So if you don't want vaccine mandates, just get it. It will be fine, okay? It's much better than getting COVID-19. I can tell you that much, all right? I can tell you that for sure. You can just look at the numbers online. Get your information. Just Google some of this stuff. Don't get it from whatever weirdo pundits you're getting this info from. Again, if anyone used this breakthrough cases indicate that the vaccine does nothing argument with you, you know you can never, ever, ever trust them again. Ever, okay? You never have to listen to them again. You're free. You're completely free. You never have to open a video of theirs or watch a news report from them again. Okay? Just please get the vaccine. Please, please, please. The only reason you're being shown this video is because somebody close to you cared enough to show it to you. All right? Maybe they've tried to have this conversation with you in the past, and maybe they've failed to be sufficiently convincing. And I imagine to an extent I will be equally ineffective in that respect, because I feel, and you can prove me wrong on this, that most of the people who are choosing not to get the vaccine at this point are like beyond caring and beyond reason. So you can prove me wrong that you do care, you are reasonable, by getting the vaccine, or at the very least starting the process. Talk to your doctor. Go look at some statistics on this, not ones from your favorite political. Just look. Go to Wikipedia or something. I don't know. Hopefully that works. Because if you don't, this will keep happening forever. 2022, 2023, children's childhoods will still be robbed from them. People are still going to be forced to wear masks. These vaccine mandates are going to spread across the country. We're going to need booster shots and then additional vaccines. This will never end unless we operate as a front together, okay? It's the only way. It's astonishing to me. You know what Bush's approval rating was after 9/11? It was like 90%. If 90% of the country can support George W. fucking Bush, can we seriously not get at least that many people in this country willing to get a vaccination to help prevent the ongoing crippling of our country?